phones, Babylons can't crack the code.
I want you to think about how good Deshaun Jackson used to be and how good Tyreek Hill is now. I will not be talking about either of those players in today's video. Instead, I'm going to talk about a guy who was drafted in the first round of the 2013 NFL Draft, who has a lot of similarities to those two players, but never really lived up to the hype. This is what happened to Tavon Austin. To start off this video, we're going to take it all the way back to Baltimore, Maryland in 1990, the year that Tavon Austin was born. He would eventually attend Dunbar High School in Baltimore. Dunbar High School was not a very big school at all, but that didn't stop Tavon Austin from being a star there. At Dunbar High School, Tavon Austin played football, basketball, and he ran track. In football, he primarily played running back, but he was an athlete. He led Dunbar High School to 3 straight 1A state titles, and as a senior, he had an amazing season with 2,660 rushing yards, with 218 carries, and 34 touchdowns. Not to mention, on the special team side of things, he was also a dog. He only had 12 punts, but he had them for a total of 446 yards in returning, and he had 2 punt returning touchdowns. He is also a 2-time Maryland Consensus Offensive Player of the Year and a Consensus First Team All-State. Tavon Austin also set state records for career points, touchdowns, total offensive yards, and rushing yards. Coming out of the 2009 recruiting class, according to the 247 Sports Composite, Tavon Austin was the 183rd best player in the nation, the 23rd best receiver. I don't know why they didn't have him listed as a running back, but we're just going to go with it. And the 4th best player in the state of Maryland. Tavon Austin held offers such as West Virginia, Boston College, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan, North Carolina, Pitt, Rutgers, just to name a few, but he ultimately committed to West Virginia. When Tavon Austin got to West Virginia, his position was changed from running back to wide receiver, mainly due to his size and the versatility that he had in his game. In his freshman season in the 2009 college football season with West Virginia, he would play in 13 games, but he would primarily be a backup and be mainly on special teams. In the 13 games he did play in, he had 15 receptions for 151 receiving yards and 1 touchdown, and had 6 rushing attempts for 47 yards and 1 touchdown. In the 2010 college football season, now a sophomore, Tavon Austin made a bigger impact with the Mountaineers. In this season, he had 787 receiving yards and a total of 8 receiving touchdowns. And on the ground, he had 161 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. In Tavon Austin's junior season at West Virginia in the 2011 college football season, he went off. He had a total of 1,186 receiving yards with 8 receiving touchdowns. And on the ground, he had 182 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. In total, he had over 1,000 all-purpose yards for that season. The dude was a beast. Not only that, Tavon Austin was named First Team All-American by CBS Sports, and in the Orange Bowl, he set an Orange Bowl record with 4 receiving touchdowns in a victory that was 70-33. In the 2012 college football season, West Virginia would move to the Big 12, and Tavon Austin would be a senior this season. And he did even better. He had his best season of college football yet, and it's the one that matters the most. He had 1,289 receiving yards with 12 receiving touchdowns, and on the ground he had 643 rushing yards, averaging nearly 9 yards per carry and 3 rushing touchdowns. Altogether, he had nearly 2,000 total all-purpose yards. Not quite, but almost. For the 2012 college football season, he was named the 2012 All-Purpose Performer of the Year, announced by the College Football Performance Awards Association, for being basically the most versatile and the best all-purpose player. Going into the 2013 NFL Draft, Tavon Austin was seen as one of the top prospects in that whole draft, and his combine definitely backed him up as he had an amazing combine. And in the 2013 NFL Draft, Tavon Austin did not have to wait very long to hear his name called. He was picked up in the first round with the 8th overall pick by the St. Louis Rams. In Tavon Austin's rookie season, in the 2013 NFL season for the Rams, he appeared in 13 games but only started in 3 of them. He did pretty decent for the amount of time that he got as a main receiver. He had 418 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns in the air, but on the ground he had 151 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. He primarily did most of his damage in his rookie year on the special team sides of things. In the 2014 NFL season, Tavon Austin would appear in 15 games and start in 8 of them, but he didn't do as much damage this season in the air. He only had 242 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns, but on the ground, he did pretty good, especially for a receiver. 224 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, that's not bad, and he ate up in the special teams game yet again. In the 2015 NFL season, Tavon Austin had his best season yet, and it was his best season of his career. He appeared in 16 games and started in 15 of them. He had 473 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns through the air, and he had 434 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, and he averaged an impressive 8 yards per carry. And he had a total of 907 all-purpose yards, and he still did a lot of damage on the special teams sides of things. Going into the 2016 NFL season, the Rams would move from St. Louis to Los Angeles to become the LA Rams. Not only that, Tavon Austin would also get a contract extension worth for 4 years, $42 million. But in the 2016 NFL season, the LA Rams would be disappointing. They went 4-12, and Tavon Austin wasn't any better, especially with his new contract he just got. He would have his best year of receiving this season with 509 receiving yards and 3 receiving touchdowns. But he only caught 54% of his passes, and he had 5 fumbles, which tied a career high. And on the ground, he struggled. He only had 159 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. The 2017 NFL season, the LA Rams would get a new head coach in Sean McVay, and Tavon Austin's production would dip dramatically. He appeared in 16 games and started in 9 of them, and the LA Rams would go to the playoffs this season, but it didn't really seem like Tavon Austin really helped out at all with that. He only had 47 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns through the air, and he had 270 rushing yards with 1 rushing touchdown, and he only averaged 4.5 yards per carry. During the 2018 offseason, the LA Rams wanted to trade Tavon Austin or release him. But on March 15, 2018, they agreed with Austin to restructure his contract that would void his final 3 years of his contract, while paying him his $5 million in guarantees and an additional $3 million in incentives. Also, in that offseason, Tavon Austin would be traded to the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for a 2018 6th-round draft pick. In his first season as a Dallas Cowboy, Tavon Austin in the 2018 NFL season only appeared in 7 games, and he didn't start in any of them. He was just a backup that was primarily on special teams, and that's what he did best, was special teams. He only had 140 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, and on the ground, he was pretty non-existent, really didn't get that many carries, only had 55 rushing yards and 0 rushing touchdowns. In the 2019 NFL season, he would return as a Dallas Cowboy, and he would appear in more games this season. He played in 14 games, but had the same role as last, primarily as a backup, but did a lot in the special teams realm of things. In the air, he had 177 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. On the ground, he had 47 rushing yards and 1 rushing touchdown. After this season, however, Tavon Austin would not be re-signed by the Dallas Cowboys. Tavon Austin in the 2020 NFL offseason would be a free agent most of the offseason, but on August 15th, 2020, he would be signed by the San Francisco 49ers. But literally just a few weeks later, he was placed on the IR on September 3rd, 2020. He was recently released on October 27th. As of now, he is not on a team. Tavon Austin is now out of the NFL but I do expect him to get signed by a team and be given another opportunity for the 2021 NFL season in some part of the season, or he'll get picked up in the offseason. Just one of the two. I don't think Tavon Austin is done with the NFL yet, but I don't think he's going to be a major contributor. I think he's going to do most of his damage like he has done most of his career in the special teams side of football, which he has made pretty much the best thing he's done all of his career has been special teams, which probably isn't the best to say for a first-round pick, but special teams is very vital to a team's success. And not only that, the biggest thing that I think that caused the fall of Tavon Austin and pretty much him being a versatile receiver that can run the ball would be he's not really in his prime anymore, and he really never had the best schemes that fit his play style when he was in his prime. In his prime, he was good, but he wasn't one of the top players in his position. He was good to get the job done, but he had a lot of flaws in his game. Tavon Austin definitely isn't done with the NFL though, but this is what happened to Tavon Austin. If you guys liked the video, remember to smash that like button, turn on them post notifications, and subscribe for more videos. B. Kelly, out!